Welcome to Rewatch and Rank. On this channel, we rewatch older TV shows, provide a summary and opinion on the episode before ranking each episode against each other. Today's episode is One Punch Man Ova, Episode 8, Saitama and the Mediocre Ability Users. So the episode in a nutshell is a brief reminder of what happened within this episode. So it starts with a group of 3 ability users who met through an online forum post and decided that they are going to become criminals and take advantage of their abilities in that way to stage a heist. But they do note that there were supposed to be 4 of them, but one person didn't show up. As they are leaving the bathroom where they were having this meeting, Saitama comes out of another stall, and they think that he might have been the 4th. So they then reveal their plan that the one who uses fire and one uses ice and one uses the ability to control animals. They relay to him their plan. And then Saitama's like, "What are you even talking about?" And they realize he's not related. Then he says he's a hero, and they decide, well, they can't let a hero know about their plans to be a criminal. So they then decide to attack Saitama, and they have these really epic power names. But in the end, one has like a little bit of fire, another one a little bit of ice, and then the other one can control animals, but like 3 birds, like little sparrows at a time. And then like once they've like clearly done 0 damage to him, but in fact accidentally have done plenty of damage to themselves, Saitama then asks like if they're his fan, if they want to be hero, like if they're testing their abilities against him because they want to be heroes because they're his fans, and they of course completely deny that because they don't even know who he is. But then Genos, who is a S-class hero who they definitely know who he is, comes along and starts calling Saitama his master. And so they then change their story, and all of a sudden, yeah, they want to be heroes. In fact, they're big fans of Saitama's, and Genos warns Saitama not to be too nice to them because then they will want to become his disciples and move into his house, which is exactly what Genos did. And Saitama then basically, instead of leaving right away, decides he actually will give them a little bit of training. So he sends them sprinting and doing sit-ups and push-ups, and eventually they're getting like really tired, and then he's like, well, if it was me and I had your abilities, I wouldn't stop until I could create an entire dome of ice over a city, or I could push an asteroid back into space with my fire ability, or that I could control the aliens like pets if they tried to invade. And in the end, basically, the mediocre gang decides that they want to just live under the radar. So the rankings for this episode, I will rank on the 2 lists as always, the mostly objective ranking list followed by the personal ranking list. And on our mostly objective ranking list, we only had single episode supporting character introductions, but we did have 4 of them. So we had Enjo, Brett, Kemanil, but then the last one is a dirt earthworm. And honestly, I forgot about him in my summary, but basically, while he's talking to the villain wannabes turned hero wannabes, they who ultimately decide they're going to live under the radar in the end. At a certain point, there's a signal that goes out that there is a dangerous entity under the park, and this entity is able to control soil, and it creates this big dirt wall that Saitama easily stops. And the only reason he managed to survive Saitama's punch is that he was so small that like the punch kind of missed him, or he was able to move with the punches force or whatever the case may be. So the earthworm comes up and I was like, wow, I dodged a bullet there, thank goodness. And then it gets eaten by one of the sparrows. But Dirt Earthworm was also there. And because there's 4 characters, each worth 1 point, that made this episode a 4 out of 10. And that brings our ranking so far to, in first, Road to Hero, The murder case that is too impossible. And I have also found out that it also could have been called the Zombie Man murder case, but that's not what the internet called it, so I still am calling it the other, but just know it has an alternative name, which will become important later. The sisters who have too many things happening, then the ninja who is too complicated. This episode came in 5th, Saitama and the mediocre ability users. Then we have Bang, who is too overbearing, a shadow that snuck up too close, and then the pupil, who is an extremely poor talker. Now onto my personal rankings. I really enjoyed this one. I thought the 3 mediocre ability users were all funny. I thought it was kind of interesting how, okay, it wasn't interesting. I changed my mind on the word. It was amusing how they had these really epic names for their powers, like majorly epic, and then like all that comes out is like the dinkiest little bit of power, like just the epic name versus epic fail of the powers. Loved that. I also like how Genos has zero self-awareness when he warns Saitama that making them think they could be disciples would lead to them, becoming disciples, taking over, like moving into his house, following him around everywhere all the time, blah blah blah, basically become Genos. And so that was funny. I also like how this dangerous entity that had like a threat level and was causing people to need to evacuate and emergency announcements to be made was an earthworm that got done in by a regular everyday sparrow. I also like how these mediocre ability users accidentally used their own powers against themselves, and it was only thanks to Saitama that they actually ended up rescued from themselves because they kept, like shaking his fist that's on fire, but then the fire lights the other's hat on. But he's the one who has ice, so then he uses his ice powers to put out the fire on his hat, but then he ends up freezing the hand of the guy who has the fire. So then the guy with the fire tries to unthaw his other hand. And then the guy with the birds decides to like send the birds to like use the wind from their wings to like help put it out, except they just fan the flames and they're really too small to create any sort of meaningful wind, and the next thing you know, they're all on fire, and with one swoosh of his cape, Saitama puts them all out. But I thought that was amusing too. Basically, it was funny, and honestly, this is the first OVA for season 2, and season 2 was such a disappointment to me personally that I actually enjoyed this more than I should have, probably, because season 2 was so lacking in our main characters that the main character finally being a focus in this OVA was like, oh, hallelujah, you're back. Great. So I might have been a little bit generous, but I did think it was good, and I decided to give it a 6 out of 10. Which then brings our overranking so far in the personal ranking to in first, a shadow that snuck up too close. This episode is in second, Saitama and the mediocre ability users. Third was Road to Hero, the, the murder case that is too impossible, the sisters who have too many things happening, the pupil who is an extremely poor talker, Bang who is too overbearing, and then the ninja who is too complicated is in 8th. And that now brings us to the series rankings so far. And on our mostly objective ranking, we have Season 1 at 88.33%, Season 2 with 74.17%, and the OVAs so far have 34 points. Personal side, we had Season 1 at 76.67%, Season 2 with 65.83%, and then the OVA so far has 40 out of 130. So with that, we've now rewatched and ranked One Punch Man Ova Episode 8, Saitama and the Mediocre Ability Users. Like and subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you in the next episode.